Hello everybody! Here I've been sitting here for a little bit and I didn't even realize how close to the time it was. I got my kids to bed and I feel more prepared tonight than I have in weeks. So, hi Terry! I thought it would be really fun hi Kayla, to create some cards with the first stamp set that I purchased from the new holiday catalog. So I am not even sure if I have my catalog in here. I did not even think about that. So I remember I shared last week a pile of swap cards that I was a part of a leader swap. And so my entry into that was this card. And so we will be creating this card tonight. I just thought that that would be a fun card to start with, so that's the one we're going to do first. And I'm not going to show the other two because I think it'll be more fun as we do it together. So I noticed that after I made these, they might take a little longer than some of my normal projects. So I was not really paying that close attention to them when I was making them, as far as like being wise with my time, and that it's not just going to be for me crafting for the sake of crafting that I'm putting these together. So, but I think that we can still work it out. So I'm not going to spend too much time chatting this way today. We're going to flip around and power through. But I have already written out all of my items that I've used. Hi, Sherry. I've already written out everything that I'm using in all these cards, so as soon as I'm finished, I'm going to make sure that I add all of that to both the YouTube when I will load the video on there, as well as onto my blog tonight. And then if you guys want to recreate any of these cards, hopefully I won't make it too difficult as far as putting them together. I really need to get better at writing down measurements because I just don't even think about it in my head. So my measurements are pretty much the same as far as my base goes every time. It is usually either 8.5 by 5.5 is the base, or I will do 4 1/4 by 11. So one of our cards today will be opening up. I'll show you the back. It'll be opening up this way, just for a different take on it. So we will be doing some big shot work today with embossing folders. We will be using our Stamparatus with the first card for this card because I wanted to show how I got that stamp on this die cut. I did do some of the die cut work, but some of it for the embossing folders I left so that you guys can watch that because that's one of my favorite things about the big shot. So we are going to get flipped around and then I'll make sure that the computer is all ready so I can read comments and we will get to crafting. So I'll take you out of this contraption and try really hard not to fumble as I do this, or even worse, turn you off, because we know that that's a possibility with how things roll around here. I'm going to try to help you. Oh, so close. I turned on something really difficult. So sorry. That was awful. I really need a better system. So we are down and straightish. Okay, so this will be our first card. And I don't want to zoom in too much because of our big shot work, but we might be able to do a little bit. So let me look up on the computer here just to make sure that I can read comments. And if you are with us and want to say hi, feel free. I will go back and read comments for those who come in that are not live tonight as well. So love to see who's with us. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to get out my supplies. and we will get started on this one. So my computer was being really slow. All right, there we go. We're ready. Wonderful. Okay, so first, because actually I forgot this card was this way too, and actually I forgot to cut this piece, so we might have to do that one as well. I completely forgot this one opened this way. So that is the first card. This one we are going to emboss with the 10 tile embossing folder, which is probably my favorite embossing folder that they have released in a long time. I love it so much. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our Big Shot, and I'm going to move these things aside for just a second as we pull this out, and I'm going to place my Big Shot down. We are going to be using our Big Shot platform. Hi, Donna. Glad you're here. We're going to use our Big Shot platform, and then I'm going to get one clear plate, because one of the cool things about this embossing folder that we're going to be using is that it is a dynamic embossing folder, which means it is super thick compared to other ones. So I'll show you a comparison. Of course, the ones that I'm grabbing are different. So this one is one of our other embossing folders, and you can see from the top that it's a lot thinner. So this is facing down. You can see the thickness. So this one, I would need 2 of the clear plates before it would give a good impression to use this folder. But this one, since it's a dynamic textured embossing folder, you only need 1 clear plate with that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our, let me see, this one is cut at 5 1/4 by 4. So our layer that's going to go right on top of our base will be 5 by 4. And so I'm just going to put it in our embossing folder, trying to get it straight without being too fidgety. So I'm going to put it in just like this. I'm going to put it down on our platform first with the clear plate on top. And again, I will put all of the product numbers on my blog post as well as on the YouTube channel. And I just realized that my cord might get knocked, so I'm going to clip my cord back. So sorry to shake you. Okay, so I'm just running this through my Big Shot. Just one time is all it needs for that. And look at how pretty that is after just one time through with that beautiful embossing folder. And so it's beautiful on both sides. This one, it looks like it's more of an imprint, and this one, it looks like it's more popped up. But with this Blackberry Bliss color, it is so pretty. I want to use it on everything around here. I want to make home decor projects. I want to make cards, scrapbook pages, all of it. So that is what we're going to use as our first layer on the top. And now what we're going to do next is we're going to pull out our Stamparatus, which you know how much I love that. And I have created a template in here. And I'm not going to use that piece, so I'll just move that aside. I've already created the template, and you can kind of see my cheat here. So what I've done is I've already put our stamp in there, and it's going to go right where I want it. And when I was die cutting this piece out with the crumb cake cardstock, I left the piece that I cut it out of as one whole piece so that I could use my magnet to hold it down in here. And I just put that piece inside of the die spot. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our Country Home stamp case, and we're going to put it underneath so that when I'm inking it up, it gets a solid impression of ink there. So I'm just going to pull out my Memento Tuxedo Black because we're going to use the watercolor pencils, but we're not going to use water. So if I were going to use water with our watercolor pencils, I would want to use our Stays-On ink because it is much better with a water-based process. Like if I'm going to use the Stampin' Blends, which we are on the other two cards, this is also the ink that I would use for those cards. We're going to do one of them a little bit different, but one of them we will be using the Memento ink for it. But because I'm not going to use water on this card with the watercolor pencils, it works perfectly fine to use the Memento Tuxedo Black ink with it because it's not going to be affected by water at all. You could also emboss, use embossing powder with this ink if you want to still use water with it, and that is fine. So what we did is we just inked up our image, and I have it all lined up just where I want it. And now I'm just going to use that clear plate right down on top of it, just pressing it down. And the cool part about this is if I don't get the image that I want the first time, then what I can do is I could re-ink it in the same place just by putting it right back in this template that I've created. But I got a good image the first time. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to use my Simply Chamois, and I'm just going to clean up that stamp really quick. This chamois was rinsed, but I have not washed it with any soap yet. It's just been rinsed. It's very well loved, and I'm thankful that I have been able to find something that works and doesn't leave a residue behind as far as when I use a baby wipe, sometimes it leaves those little flecks behind, and so this one does not, so I like that about that. So I have a very runny nose tonight, and I took some medicine for it, but I just don't want to keep sniffling, so I'm just gonna help myself a little bit. Hopefully I won't spend the night sniffing. So I'm going to set the Stamparatus aside, and then we will probably zoom in just a little bit to do our coloring. And this is the part where on all three cards, it's probably going to take us the longest. So if you have to go, or if the coloring stuff is just not your thing, I'm trying really hard to zoom it in, but there we go. All right, so I'm going to move it over just a little bit. Hi, Shelly. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out our colored pencils, which have all of a sudden disappeared from my table. I thought I had them, and now I can't even see them anywhere. Okay. I found them. Okay. I had put them there. I thought I had everything ready over here so that I wouldn't have to go digging for them. So the colors that we're going to use, if I can do it from memory from when I created this one, is we are going to use the Whisper White for our little cotton blossoms. We are going to use our Old Olive. We will use Daffodil Delight, Pumpkin Pie, as well as the Rich Raspberry. Now you will notice that not one of these colored pencils is the Blackberry Bliss, which is what we are using for our base and our first layer. But I feel like it coordinates really well with that. So again, this is the card that I used for our leader swaps on my team, and I thought I had so much fun creating it that I want to share it so that everybody else can make it too if they want to. So it's not too hard, and because it's a lot of really simple layering, anyone could create it and not have any stress from it. So I'm gonna try really hard to color quickly and try not to make you too bored. But I will tell you that when I was coloring these in the leader swaps, I did the coloring part all right next to each other, and I had to take breaks because I just don't color that often. And the colored pencils they put like a permanent imprint on my finger the day that I was working on them. And so it's just one more reasons I love our Stampin' Blends, because one, because I'm using the Crumb Cake cardstock, you kind of need to push a little bit harder for your color to be seen really well. But I still really liked the effect that it gave on top of the Crumb Cake cardstock. So it was worth it. It was worth all the time and the imprint on my finger. So just from that little bit, adding the white on top of those little cotton blossoms looks so fun. So that's what we're doing first. And then this one, we're going to use the Daffodil Delight, which also, when put with the crushed curry, you'll find with the Stampin' Blends, so we're going to use the dark Daffodil Delight. It almost pairs with that really nicely. So I'm really sorry if this is still far away and that you're having trouble seeing it. I will lift it up as soon as I'm finished with the coloring and you can kind of see a little bit better. This color is Pumpkin Pie, and we're just coloring in our little circles from these little stems there. So really simple coloring. And again, this set of watercolor pencils is in our annual catalog, and all of the colors that we're using are available. So I tried not to use any products that have been retired or that are unavailable. I will tell you though, tonight on one of the cards, I think it'll probably be the third card that we're going to make tonight, one of the items that I'm using is on back order. But when things go on back order, it usually will tell us when they're coming back. And so if you guys are interested in that item and realize that you can't get it, we can definitely be in touch with when it will come back in stock to order it. So I'm just going to color the rest of these green. And I think that these two are supposed to be flowers of some kind, but I really felt like it worked to color them all as if they were leaves because they were right there. So that's how I did my swap cards, and I liked how the green kind of filled up that bottom half. And Old Olive, that's what color this one is my favorite color of green. So I try to use it any chance I get for cards. It was always been a favorite for sure. So we're just going to finish coloring in these cute little leaves, and then we are all done with the coloring on this one. So see, that didn't take too long, and I'll lift that up and you can kind of see close up there. So that is our coloring with our watercolor pencils, and I'll put those away so that I don't lose them. And then we will start our layering. This card had a lot of cutouts that I made beforehand. So again, this set is from the Stitched Labels Framelits dies, and I'm hoping that I'm getting that in. Yep, okay. I think that this white paper is safe for me to show you things in, that I won't get confused or lost or behind. So what we are going to use to put our layers together tonight is Snail Adhesive. So when we put this on, when I was creating the card, just to show you a little bit more of my process. I really love this embossing folder so much that I really wanted to be able to see a little of that imprint on the bottom of this white, because I felt like it would just really make that, the stamp pop. And so when I was layering my, my designer series paper on the top of it, I wanted to leave a little bit of the bottom on there so that you can see it so visibly. So what we're going to do is before we put our card layers together, we need to do our stamp with our sentiment. So sorry. I feel like a mess. I think it is just that my body does not think that I need to take naps. Hi, Carol. Happy to have you. So what we are doing is we're going to use the Blackberry Bliss, and this is the old stamp pad, and so they will look different if you get that, but because I only really used it for 2 years because it used to be an in color, I didn't really feel like it was quite time to replace the stamp or the ink pad for some that I had barely even used before. So some of them I'm trying to replace them slowly. Yeah, thanks for sending that invite out, Sherry. Slowly I'll add the new ink pads to my collection, but right now there's some ink pads that I don't even have of the old collection or even the new collection, and so little by little I'll add those into my stamp pad collection. So I'm just inking up this Simply Thankful for all the good things, and I'm going to stamp it in the lower right hand corner, and I'm just going to hold it down and gently press on that, and that is beautiful. So I'm just going to use my Simply Chamois tool here just to clean that off, and I'll give them a good clean later. But I will tell you this exciting thing. I have an order coming. I used some of my bonus days rewards, and I have an order that will be here on Wednesday that I'm super excited about. I'm getting some goodies that I have been debating on for a really long time, so I'm excited. I'm getting the new, it's not really new to the catalog, it's been in the catalog for a long time, but I'm getting the new Stampin' Scrub, because I've had the old one for, oh goodness, since 2002, so a long time. It has lasted me forever, but the new one that they've had in the catalog for so long is bigger, and so I'm super, super excited to get that in the mail on Wednesday. So you guys can be watching for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Snail Adhesive on all 4 sides of this designer series paper, because I used this embossing folder. I want to get as much adhesive as I can to hold down this layer so that it will not pop up. So what I'm doing is I'm going to leave a little bit of space. I should probably look at my card just to make sure I'm getting it right. It might be a little tiny bit higher than I did it on the other cards, but it will be close, and it's nothing to stress about. So that is what about how much space I left at the bottom. And now I'm going to take the Snail Adhesive and add our sentiment, which I should have probably measured those to tell you the measurements. I can do it really, really fast. Okay. The designer series paper that is from the Country Lane pack, which is in the new holiday catalog, is 2.5 by 4. So 2.5 by 4. That is what that layer is. And this one that we did the sentiment on is 4 by 1.5. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this, that's why. Okay, so I did a little bit of smudged, but not enough for me to toss it away. So it'll be just fine. So what we did there is we just put it just a tiny, tiny little bit underneath where the designer series paper was. And we are going to add this super, super cute braided linen trim on the top of our sentiment. And so I'm just going to measure really fast. And this one is really simple because I'm not doing any tying. And we're literally just taping it around to add a little bit of separation between our designer series paper and our sentiment there. And that braided linen trim is so, so pretty that I really wanted to use it on these swaps. And what I'm doing is I put it where I wanted it, and then I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to just use Scotch tape to tape that down. And then we are going to take our Snail adhesive, and again, we're going to do a pretty generous amount of adhesive on all 4 sides, and you guys get to see me do a refill again. So it's happening more regularly now that I'm making more cards during the week. So we just push the top and the bottom to take that out of our base there. And I will grab another package. So this is what the refill, the Snail adhesive refill, will come in one of these. And so you just take it out of your box. Most of the time I will toss the box on the floor and clean it up later. So I just took that little yellow piece out, and I will slide it into the base, and that is perfect. So we're just going to continue on. I always like putting a fresh one in and hearing that clicking sound again. It reminds me that it's working. So I'm just going to do a little bit of adhesive in the middle as well, so you can see how generous I made that adhesive. So I'm just going to use our base, and again, the base is cut at 5.5 by 8.5. That is a standard A2 size card. If you're buying envelopes online, that's a code that they use. So that is our layering on that. And now what I did is I just got some Stampin Dimensionals, and I'm pretty sure that these are from a paper pumpkin kit, but I went through my kits and pulled out the things that I had already opened, some of the past kits, but I don't always finish them. I might make a couple of cards, but I don't often finish all of the whole package that comes. Sometimes I'll leave it so that if my daughter wants to create, she knows that she can come in and find one of those kits that are opened and half put together, and she can create something if she'd like. Now, as you can see, I love my dimensionals. I use probably way more than necessary, but I think that is something that is super fun about handmade cards, is getting to have layers that jump right off of your page. So not a lot of cards that you can find in the store have a lot of dimension to them because of sometimes it has to do with postage, and sometimes it has to do with the cost of the cards. But I think having the dimension off of your cards adds so much to it. So that is popped up right off of that. So that is our card number 1, put with, and here's the kicker. When I was cutting these out, I'm just looking at the front going, oh, I know exactly what I need. I need a Blackberry Bliss base. And so I just cut it out just like normal, and see, this one goes this way, and my swap card goes this way. So what we're gonna do, since I did not cut out a white piece for the inside, I'm gonna get my trimmer out with some Whisper White cardstock. That's exactly what we used for this. And I will show you what I did to cut out that inside, and we can do a little bit more stamping for that. So I'm gonna grab my trimmer and a piece of Whisper White cardstock out of my container over here. Now, I will have to, there we go. I have a brand new container, so sometimes they get a little bit sticky in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it out at 5 1/4 by 4. So that I will have a little bit of a border of that Blackberry Bliss cardstock on the inside of our card here. So I'm going to get out my piercing mat again, because we are using photopolymer stamps. It's really helpful to use a Stampin' piercing mat for getting a really solid image from our photopolymer stamps. So I'm just going to pull out our Country Home stamp set and get this little cute square, to which it fits almost perfectly on our A block here. It's a really easy block to snag for that. So then we're going to get into our Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to stamp one in the top right hand corner, and I'm going to try really hard to do this without putting my head all the way in the frame. So, hi Julianne. And so then this one is going to go in the lower corner, and those look great. So I'm going to try really hard not to smudge them because of how good that ink is in the ink pad. And I'm going to use my chamois just to clean up that stamp just a little. You can tell that the stamps that I used for that card are already stained a little bit because I used the Blackberry Bliss ink on them so much. So I'm going to take some Snail Adhesive and put this layer down. And because I don't have any embossed layers, I just am doing 2 for that one. But we are going to do so that we have that little bit of a border for that card. So that is card number 1. My swap card for my leader swap. So super, super cute and not too difficult at all to make multiples, because if I can do multiples and do it that quickly, I think anyone can. So I'm going to set that card aside, and we will move on to the next one. And I mentioned that I'm not going to show you ahead of time what that card is, because I think it'll be really fun. But the second card we're going to make, we are going to use a crushed curry base, and we are going to have accents of early espresso with this beautiful, beautiful, this is probably my favorite paper, the piece of designer series paper in that whole designer series paper pack of the Country Lane cardstock, or designer series paper. So this is the paper pack, and I think I showed it last week, but the colors that are in this are just beautiful. So I'll just kind of finger through here so that you can kind of see. We are using this designer series paper on every single card that we're doing tonight. So this has been very well loved, and I have already ordered another pack because I so love it. It's coming with the rest of my goodies. So what we're going to do tonight is we are going to do a little bit of fussy cutting on our images today. So what we're going to use is we are going to use the same stamp that we did in the first card, And we're gonna stamp that one out. And I already have my other one mounted for the next card because that is the one that I made most recently. So let me grab a block quick. I think I have another one. There we go. So I just grabbed another one of my, this is my most used block. And this one is a D block. It fits almost all of my stamps. There are very few that I have that are bigger than this block. So I think I have 3 D blocks because I use them all the time. All right, so then I'm going to need this one for this little part here. Now we're going to use a different ink for this card, even though we're going to do coloring with our Stampin' Blends, and I will go over each color that I use with you as we are coloring. Usually when you use the Stampin' Blends, you do not want to use the classic ink because sometimes the alcohol-based markers will kind of spread a little bit. But when I did this card earlier, it didn't really take away from the effect that I was going for. So I really think that it came out really, really pretty. So I'll show you how I do it, and then if you need to make adjustments to what works for you, you can definitely do that. So I'm just inking up in early espresso for our ink tonight, and I'm just going to ink up this image, give it a good push down just to make sure that it is saturated in there, and that's perfect. I'm going to wipe that off and set this stamp aside, and then pick up our little jug, and we're going to ink that with the early espresso as well. And we will be cutting out both of these images by hand, and it didn't take me too long, not long enough for me to change my mind about wanting to share it with you guys. But if you don't like hand cutting, you could do this on just one solid piece of Whisper White cardstock and do a layer behind it and get the same effect. But I really liked how it kind of jumps off of the card and looks a little bit more 3D effect for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside, and then I will get out my Stampin' Blends for this card. So I am going to be using the bronze, which is a really good one for some skin tones, and I've used it on wooded cards. So for our jug, we're going to be using a dark crumb cake and a light crumb cake, as well as the bronze. And then for our flower, we are going to be using the light crumb cake to give a little bit of a shadowed look to our cotton blossoms, since they're already white on that image. But I think it adds a fun shadowing element. I will be using this if need be. This is the Color Lifter. I always have that close by just in case I make a mistake and need to do some lifting. But we're going to be cutting these images out, so I don't anticipate that we're going to need them a lot. We are going to use the dark Daffodil Delight because when it is paired with the crushed curry in little bits, I think if it was used for a full image, that it would be not dark enough, but because we're only going to use it on the little dots, it complements it perfectly. We will be using the dark Blackberry Bliss. We are using the dark Old Olive. Hi, Lynn! And we will be using the dark and the light Cajun Craze. So we will be using all of those in this one. But I'm going to just start coloring, and we'll see some magic happening. This is my favorite part because I love the Stampin' Blends, and my favorite side to use is the brush tip, which is probably why I am using my color lifter as often as I am, because I just love it. So if you see these little markings on the jugs, I kind of use that as the place to go for the dark color first. So I usually will add, I'll kind of do the swirlies. I'll kind of add the dark color in a circle pattern, and I'm going to go over and do some more of this after I've lifted it a little bit with the lighter colors as well, just to kind of give you an idea of how I got my shading. But I haven't done a ton of coloring with the shading, but I've practiced a little bit, so I am going to go along the top and give that the darker color. We'll do this part of the handle and a little bit of this handle, and then we're going to go in with our, yes, those fall colors are my favorite. September is my birthday month, so it is always my favorite. So what I'm doing now is I took out my dark crumb cake, and when you're coloring with the brown tones, it could really seem like these colors don't really look like they go together when they're right next to each other. And so when I was coloring it in the beginning, I was like, oh, I should have switched colors, and I shouldn't have used the bronze color. It doesn't look quite like it is supposed to go. So you can kind of see how they don't look great right next to each other. Kind of looks a little bit gross. But the effect that I got at the end, I was really happy with. And so I was glad that I pushed through any fear that I had and didn't throw it all away. I really believe in finishing something out, even if it doesn't go all the way according to your plan, because you'll be surprised almost every single time when you are creating. So because this is not the lightest color that I'm going to use, I'm not going to cover the entire whiteness of the card, but I am going to go over all of the bronze with this dark crumb cake, and I'm going to go around it just a hair, just to bring the color out a little bit more to do the blending part. And another thing that I like to do, oh, I'm so glad that you can learn tips from me. I love learning tips from all kinds of different people and friends and other demonstrators, and I think that's one of the best things that we can do for each other is when we've learned something to share it with other people, because it is such a gift to learn new things like that, especially if it's something we're really passionate about, to inspire others in creativity. And so as you can see, I'm just kind of going over in case I've missed any areas of that bronze color, coloring over it with the dark crumb cake. And now I'm going to go over the whole thing with the light crumb cake. And when you're coloring with it over the top of both of those dark colors, it does tend to lift it fairly quickly, to which I was like, oh, I hope that doesn't like ruin it or leave some harsh lines, but it really didn't when I was creating with it. And so I'm just kind of going over the whole thing in the light crumb cake where I have colored the other two colors from the outside to the middle. And it'll just take away those harsh lines and blend the dark colors to the middle of that jug. And so I'm using the swirling motion. And there is a line right now, but the more you do the blending towards the center, that line will get less harsh and will kind of fade into it. So what we're gonna do is we might go back in with our dark crumb cake a little bit. So I do a little bit of going back and forth, depending on the colors that are happening. A little bit. I'll go along the bottom a little bit more with the dark. And then I'll save the lightest color for the center. And then we're going to go back to the light crumb cake and blend that line again. Oops, I'm going to use the brush. That's my favorite side. So I'll switch it around. So we're just going to blend that middle now and just go towards the center. As you can see, the line is starting to fade away. And the more that it dries, the better those lines will be. It just looks kind of like a shadowed line. So I'll show you what it looks like right now, but it will continue to change as the ink or the alcohol-based marker as it dries, just to give a kind of weathered look on that. So that is our jug, and I'll set that up there as it dries, and then we will work on coloring this one. So because we just got done using our, sorry, I'm wearing a skirt and it just got stuck under my chair. because I just got done using this color, I'm going to pull that one out first. And I'm literally just going to go with the light crumb cake on the bottoms towards where the ink is actually, coming up from that early espresso ink, just to give a little bit of shadowing and shading to our little cotton blossoms there. I think they're so pretty and they're so trendy right now. The fact that I've seen them in stores that I go in, and online I've seen them lots of different places, and I've seen them in episodes of Fixer Upper, which I love. So for the next one, we are going to use our light Cajun Craze, and we're not going to do a ton of shading on our flowery image. We're just going to be doing the coloring. And so we will not be blending our dark and light Cajun Craze together. We're going to use them as completely separate colors right now for a different effect. So that is the only flower that we're going to use the light Cajun Craze on. And then for the dark Cajun Craze, we're going to use it for these really cute little honeycomb looking things, which I'm sure they have a name, a more technical name. But I'm really not sure what that is. So to me, they look like honeycomb cereal. And so that is what I think of when I look at them. So we are going to get this most time-consuming part out of the way for this card first. So that is what we're using the dark Cajun Craze on. And now we will move to those things that I colored in green before. I'm coloring them in the dark rich razzle, no, this is Blackberry Bliss, the dark Blackberry Bliss. I didn't use a ton of other colors when it comes to the base of this card. Most of it is just the early espresso and the Cajun or crushed curry. And so I wanted to pull in the other colors from the suite that are used in that cardstock, that were at least close to it, to kind of bring a little bit more warmth to this card. So now we're using the dark Daffodil Delight on these little stem circles. And when you see it put next to the crushed curry, you'll see that it is not identical, but it definitely looks like it's close enough to complement it. And I'm pretty sure that I didn't miss it. But I do not think that we have a crushed curry set of Stampin' Blends. And so at this time, if you want to use the Stampin' Blends with your projects and with these fall tones, the Daffodil Delight Dark is definitely one that I feel pairs nicely with. So I'm just coloring in our leaves now for these, for this cute little image, and then we will do our cutting. And that is the part that I think I'm the most nervous about with the camera, because I have not practiced it with a camera, and I haven't done a ton of cutting when it comes to things like this. So you will definitely need to bear with me, be patient, please, as I am cutting and trying to get a good cut. I'm going to stand up so that hopefully I can get it close enough that it's not making you dizzy, but also that you can see how I'm doing it. So I'm not going to go in super, super deep into all these little ridges, but I'm going to leave a little bit of white space around them, and I'm going to see if I can talk and cut at the same time. That'll be a tricky thing to do. So I hope you are enjoying this so far. I have enjoyed creating them. I had a lot of creative time this weekend. I actually did sound for a wedding that was at our church. I've only done a couple because our team is stretched pretty thin right now. So when your pastor's wife is doing sound for weddings, you just really know that you're stretched pretty thin. So I'm happy to serve and I'm happy to help out, especially when it's wonderful weddings like this one. I didn't know the couple, but I knew the pastor that was marrying them. It wasn't my husband this time, but he and his family we've gotten to know since we moved here, and so I was happy to get to see them and help out with that wedding. And so that's where I spent my afternoon yesterday. Yeah, it does look like fall. Actually, most of the cards that I've been doing this week are definitely inspired by fall. I even created my scrapbook layout with this stamp set, so I'll have to show it to you for Friday's scrapbook challenge, because this set actually, I wanted even before I saw it, because our team leader, Robin, had completed and had advanced into her platinum, and so she did a platinum party using this stamp set. And so she said, anyone who wants to participate in my platinum party needs to get this stamp set, and she told us the items that we were going to need for it. And so this was the first one that I put on my list, because when your leader advances into the final advancement that she can even go to, you want to celebrate with her. And so I was very excited to get to do that. So that is the first one. Sorry, my phone had a message and I tried to send it away and it made you all shaky. I'm so sorry. So I'm just going to cut out this jug the same way. And there are a couple of areas on this jug that we probably could have used the color lifter, but since we're doing the cutting, they'll probably just blend in. And if anything, it might even look like a shadow. But so when we used this set for the cards for her platinum party, I knew that I was not done creating with that set. I was very inspired, and the scrapbook layout came out super cute too, so I'll have to show it to you guys. I know I posted it on my page here on Friday, but we'll see if we can put it into this live video as well. So that is the cutting, the hand cutting for this one. And so when we are layering this, we will put glue dots along the back there and just put it right over the top of our jug, just like that. So super, super cute. So we have a little bit of stamping that we're gonna do, and then we can start putting this card together. We are going to use the crushed curry ink. And again, I have an old pad for this one, so I'm just gonna open it up, and my ink pad looks kind of funky, but when I stamped it, I was okay with the image that I got. So I'm not super sure if I just need to re-ink it, if it's just been bored because I haven't used the crushed curry in a long time. That could possibly be it. I'm sure it needs ink. So I'm going to pull out the sentiment, "You are the happy to my day," because I think this is a sentiment that you could give just about anybody. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this on, and I'm using a really big block for this, which is not necessary, but I'm just going to ink that up, and see, it's still showing that it has ink on it, so I'm not too concerned about it. But I'm going to put the sentiment down in the right hand corner, and I'm going to give it a little press there, and just like that. So that is our image for our sentiment. And now we get to put the card together. I'm so excited. Oh, we get to do another really fun part. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. We get to do a little bit more embossing with another Big Shot folder. Okay, so we're going to use this Early Espresso, and we are going to use another one of the brand new embossing folders that is also a dynamic, which is the thicker, a dynamic textured embossing folder, the corrugated. Now this one is so, so cool, and I really, really, really hope that they put both of these embossing folders into the annual catalog. Otherwise, we only get to use them until December, so it just would not be enough. So I'm just crossing my fingers that we'll get to keep these stamps, or these embossing folders. So we're gonna get back out our Big Shot, and I've zoomed in, so I hope I'm not too crazy. We'll go forward a little bit. So with this one again, our layers are the Big Shot platform. We are going to use our embossing folder, and I'll get it all lined up here and put down. And then we're using one clear plate over the top of it. And we're just gonna run that through our Big Shot here. And just one time is all it needs. Then I'll set it aside. And I feel like I need to sneeze, so I'm really sorry. Excuse me. Goodness. I just really don't think my allergies want me to take naps on Sundays, because I wake up with a runny nose and sniffly all night long and sneezing. But thank you. We have been sleeping with our windows open because it has been gorgeous outside, and we are very ready for fall at our house. So I guess the sacrifices that I make in this process are that I get to be sniffly and sneezy for the time being. So what we're going to do is we're going to start putting this card together, and I felt another one coming, so I just thought I'd take care of that. All right, so next we are going to use our designer series paper, and we are going to use our Snail Adhesive on the back, and we are going to do probably 3 lines of it, because this isn't a super big piece of designer series paper, but we really do want it to hold down. And we're only going to leave a little bit at the bottom. But we will have a little space of that Early Espresso on both sides, because I liked how it gave it a border. So I'm just going to gently press that down to make sure all of that adhesive is sticking to it. And now we are going to wrap two, because I liked how it looked with two strips of this linen trim, the braided linen trim that we used on the last card. We're going to put this around 2 times. So I'm going to get out my Scotch tape again. And I definitely see that we're only 2 cards in and I have 1 more to go. So if this has gone too long for any of you and you need to go, I completely understand. I'm going to power through because I really think that the 3rd card is beautiful. But if anybody wants to come back and watch the replay, I totally understand. I try to keep these at around an hour. And sometimes they're quicker and sometimes they go longer. So it kind of depends on how much time I've had to put into it, I suppose. So I am going to just wrap this other one and try to do it without going too high. I just sometimes forget that I zoomed in. And when I'm looking down at my camera, I realize, oh, I'm a lot closer than I was at the beginning. So that is what that is going to look like on there, and that will have that little effect there. And now we're going to adhere these pieces down with Snail as well. We're going to start with this one, and I used the Stitched Shapes oval for the crushed curry layer, and then I used the layering oval framelits for, oh goodness, this suite is so pretty, and it doesn't have framelits to it, so it is one of the cheaper stamp sets. When they don't come in a bundle, I feel like they are way more cost effective. But the bundles, I always want both. I want the framelits, I want the punch, I want the stamp set, I want it all. So when I find a stamp set that literally is just the stamp set, and I don't have to order any framelits, I'm always super excited about it, because I'm going to move these out of the way because they're falling. Because I realize that it's not as much of a stretch for that to happen. So I just have a sheet of glue dots from a old paper pumpkin kit. And so I'm just putting a few of these glue dots down at the bottom, and I hope you can see that, of our little flower here. I'm going to use my piercing tool to lift those off. And I have my little trash bin next to me here, so I can pick up these little tiny pieces and put them in the trash. Okay, so then we are, yeah, I got really excited about it too. It helps make, if you wanted to get a couple of the Stampin' Blends to kind of go along with it. Hi, Nate. A lot more cost effective, but this is super cute. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put some Snail adhesive down on my image here, just along right on this side, because we are going to put it on top of this layer here. So I did not want to pop that part up because I want them to lay flat and then pop this whole thing up together behind it. So what we're going to do before we put dimensionals on that, we're going to use our Snail adhesive on this layer. And we're going to, again, do it pretty good with our adhesive because of how, thick it is after it's been run through the Big Shot. So there's still quite a bit of dimension to that. So I wanted to get a good amount of adhesive on that. So we, again, are just going to have the tiniest little crumb or crushed curry, good grief, mixing all my colors together. The tiniest little border for that card, base. And now we will use our Stampin' Dimensionals like crazy because I love them. So we're going to get enough dimensionals to hold up this whole piece here. I'm going to have it on both the jug and the oval. And then I'm going to even cut down a piece of the side here to show you how I pop up the flowers. I'm just cutting the sides of the dimensionals to get the smaller pieces to put on, hi Jordan, on the flower pieces, those little cotton blossoms, just so that they don't sag when I am adhering them down onto the card. So I'll just use that one more piece there. So that they'll hold up when I adhere them down. So now I'm just going to take the backings off of our billions of dimensionals because I love them. And we will adhere this last little bit to our card. Our second card will be done for the night. And the third one, I was telling you that something was on back order. That I realized it as I was creating the card, and I had already finished it and written down all the item numbers and everything, getting them ready to post them today. And I realized that the chicken wire, which is one of the coolest things ever, is on back order. So as soon as I know when it's not on back order anymore, I can let anybody know that is wanting to know, because those chicken wire are so cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it right there on that right side, just enough to see the fun element on that side. But this is card number 2. So this is the one that I made last night over on the left here, and this is the one that we just made tonight. So they came out super cute, and I hope that you like those. So I'll set that one aside now, and I will get out our items. Look at, here's the chicken wire, and I cut it so that I could get, I think it cuts into three pieces about this size from one sheet of the chicken wire. I'll pull it out here. So I have one little piece left. Thank you. Of this chicken wire elements. So that one is on back order, sadly, but it'll come back because the catalog just came out on the 5th. And so that just shows how popular these things are, because us demonstrators had the whole month of August to shop from that catalog. And so they already knew we loved it. And so when the customers were allowed to buy it, it went really quickly. So we have several pieces here that will make sense in a second. But another thing from the suite that I'm excited to show you is the galvanized foil sheets. And so we are actually going to use the same, oh goodness, where did I put it? The embossing folder, the tin tiles, there it is. The same one that we used for the first card, we're going to use, thank you, thanks ladies. We're going to use this in our Big Shot to go through on the foil, and it looks so pretty. I'm so excited. So we're going to actually do that first and get our Big Shot work out of the way first. So I'll just put all those little things aside, and I'll grab my Big Shot again and try to put that where you can see both sides. And here is the Big Shot platform. And so I have put our galvanized foil sheet in the embossing folder. I'm sitting that down right on that platform with one clear plate over the top of it. And then we are just going to run that through our Big Shot. Just one time through is plenty. And we will see what beautiful impression it has left. Ready? So pretty with that foil. Hi, Kimberly. So that is with the galvanized, and so that is one of our elements that we're going to use on this card. I'll put my big shot away, and then we can do some stamping. We are going to stamp the other image from this stamp set that we haven't used yet. We're going to use this one this time, and then we are going to use the sentiment, "So grateful for someone like you in my life," and we are going to use the picture on this card. So I think, yep, we haven't used the picture yet either. So that one is going to get used, this one, and this one. And for this card, we are going to use the Memento Tuxedo black ink on this one as well. So hopefully I can remember where I put it. That would be awesome. I sat it down. There it is. Can't go too far away. Yes, that background folder is a bigger size than some of our embossing folders are too. So the amount of coverage that you get is so, so cool. I used it in my scrapbook layout with the galvanized foil as well, except I used the whole strip of the, I think I maybe cut it down so that it was 11 by 3, just so that I could get a good imprint of it, and it would add a lot of detail to the scrapbook layout. And I was very, very happy with that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our Memento Tuxedo black ink, because we are going to use Stampin' Blends on this one. So this is the best ink to use for this card. And our picture is going to go on this one, and we will be cutting both of these out as well this time. But it looks so, so pretty. So again, this is going long. So if any of you can't stay, I completely understand. I will definitely try next time to not have such tricky projects. I hope I'm not making them look too difficult, because they really are a lot of fun to make. So I hope that these inspire you as well. And I apologize for how many times I've had to stop my sniffles. So then we are going to stamp that down, and I'm going to push a little bit and wait a little bit more for this one, just so that that ink can saturate into the Whisper White cardstock on here. This one we're not going to quite use as many colors to get our image colored in, but since we are inking up things right now, I thought we would also do our sentiment here, and we will just be cutting this down once we have used it. But we are going to use our Old Olive. Thanks, guys, I appreciate it. I really love crafting and creating, and with school starting back up again, it's been a really good outlet for me to be able to have even an hour while my kids are at school after I've finished with my first job. And I have little kiddos that I watch, and sometimes if they're taking a really good nap and I have other projects done in my house, I will sneak away some craft stuff and sit at my table while the kids are napping, and that crafting time is so, so good to me. So I'm just going to cut this down to 1 1/4 where our sentiment is on this Old Olive cardstock, and we inked it with Old Olive as well. So that is 1 1/4 by 1 1/4. That's what that square is, a rectangle. So that, I think, is all of our ink work today. So we will color our picture. So we're going to be using the dark Blackberry Bliss We will be using the dark Daffodil Delight. We will be using the dark Old Olive for this one. And we are going to use all three of these on our picture again, and we will be using two of them on our little image here as well. Okay. So I'll sit down and color again and try not to get my dress underneath my chair. My skirt. So I'll set these three colors aside and I will start with our picture here. And we're going to do the same thing with shading on our picture that we did on our jug. With where these speckled areas are, we're going to focus a little bit more with the dark color on those areas, and then we will pull the color out from that. So that's what we're going to do with our bronze Stampin' Blends, and then we will go back in with our dark crumb cake, and we're going to do the same sort of shading that we did, where I will go over all of the bronze with the dark crumb cake and just kind of pull that color in to the center to blend together, as well as at the bottom. Now this card I did use the color lifter on a couple of times, but I will wait until the end because 9 times out of 10, if I fix the color in the middle of the project, I will need it again by the end, because it just happens that way. So now we are pulling out our light crumb cake, and again we're going to go over the whole image, just using that circular motion from the edges to the center, so that we can get all of the coverage from that. And to the bottom, and I'm not going to do anything with the handle because I feel like it is a pretty thin handle and it doesn't need a lot of interest to it. So I'm going to go from the back to the middle, and I might come in with the dark crumb cake again like I did the last time, just to blend that line a little bit softer. But then we'll just go over the whole thing again with the light crumb cake. And then I'll pull out our color lifter when we're finished with this part, just to get those mistakes taken care of where I got a little bit of excited on those edges. So I'm just going to go down that center a little bit more, and it'll fade as it dries as well, so nothing too much to worry about. So I'm just going to take our color lifter and I'm going to go along this bottom part. Now we are going to cut it out, so it's not going to be a huge deal to worry about, but just because the color does bleed out quite a bit if you get really close to the line. That's another thing to remember when using the stamping blends, that if you get really close to that border line, they will bleed out just a tiny bit. So these color lifters are very handy for things like this, and you can continue to use them, but it does not take out the full color, but it will take out and make it lighter. So I'm not super picky with mine, but always just in case. Okay, so because we're done with that jug, I'm going to cut it. I'll stand up again. I'm going to cut it out just like I did the jug. A little bit of space around it. And this one, I will tell you, is not quite as many things to cut around, so it doesn't take quite as long. But I love framelits when they come with sets like this, because I feel like it takes a lot of the time out of it. But fussy cutting has never really bothered me all that much. So whenever I have a project that doesn't come with a framelit set, I still use it just as much. So for this one, since we just used our brown hues, we're going to start with these. And I'm just going to take the bronze and go right over these cute little speckly dots in this card, or in these little cuties. And so I just took the bronze, and now I'm not even going to use the dark crumb cake. I'm only going to use the light crumb cake. And I'm going to take this over the top of it, and I'm just going to do a circle all the way down, just going over it a couple of times to blend that color. So it really just has a little bit of a shading that it gives it, nothing too over the top, but it's a really pretty effect that it gives. So that is all that we're going to do with those. And now we are going to use our Daffodil Delight to go over these cute little dots. And I'm sure that they have a name too, and they might even be a different color. But the cool part about this stamp set is that I've seen it colored in just about every way possible, including some of our brights, some of our subtles. I've seen it done with the mint macaron color, and every single way that I've seen them color this, this one it's been beautiful. So I totally think that you can be really creative when it comes to the color on these images, for sure. All right, so we're going to take our dark Blackberry Bliss, and we're going to color all these little leaves. And I'm going to try really hard not to color the ones that are meant to be green, because I have very specific colors that I'm using. So we'll see how well I go by what I've already done on that. So another thing I love about these Stampin' Blends is how smooth they are. They are some of the best markers that I have ever colored with. Like, you just, the lightest touch and you have coverage. So I feel very relaxed when I color with these. So we are just going to color all these little leaves here. I think that I'm doing it to what I had on the other one. So we'll see. So this week should be a pretty low-key week for us, which I'm pretty excited about. We've had quite a bit going on at our house, and getting even back into the school routine, there's always been something coming up. So I think this weekend might be the first weekend that we haven't had an extra thing going on. So we're just gonna finish. He gets home and realizes that I'm still live, he'll understand why. Because usually I'm done by now, and when he calls me when he's done with his gaming group, I can answer my phone. And tonight I'm going very late. And so thank you to the 6 people or more possibly that are still watching me create these projects. I worked really hard to have them all ready this week, and I really did not time a single thing of what I was doing, which next time I'll try really hard to do that. But for this one, we're just going to color all the rest are just going to be in the Old Olive. And I'm going to try really hard not to make a total mess by using the brush tip on all these tiny little leaves, but this part won't go too long. And once we're assembling the card, putting the card together, it goes pretty quickly. So the most time consuming is always the coloring. And in some cases, people will even fast forward these, but I usually don't. I'll just keep it as is. I don't edit a ton of my videos. I don't have a good computer system to do that. So we're just going to cut out the image again, and we will put our card together. So that is a really simple, just a few different colors that we used on this one. But again, really pretty fall colors with our pretty old olive color. That's our base today. So the base to our card is cut out at 4 1/4 by 11 because I did it vertical. And so we're just going to cut around. I'm going to try not to go too quick with it. This one is a little bit different than the other one is, but it's a little bit harder to talk and cut at the same time. So I'm not even sure what all of your time zones are. Hopefully it's not too late where you are. But this card is really pretty, so I'm excited to show it to you. We are going to finish cutting this one out. And you can kind of see the colors a little bit better up close now that I've held it up to you, what the browns did with the blends, with those hues. And I can't even remember what those little brown things are called. Cattails? Does that sound right? I think they might be called cattails. They're cute, and I've seen them used in a lot of decorations, even though I'm pretty sure they're weeds. But one of my favorite weeds is some weeds that look like sunflowers that really aren't sunflowers. I used to have, my husband used to stop by the side of the road and pick them and bring them home, and I was just as excited about those as I was flowers. So it's just how it goes at my house. All right, so now that we have all of our things cut out, we will put this beautiful card together. And I will really try to find all the things that I was going to use for it. Okay, so first we're going to stick glue dots on the bottom of our flowers that we just cut out so that we can add it to our jug. And I'm using, oh good, I did say it right. Hooray. I was pretty sure I remembered what that was. Thanks, Nate. Yeah, my mom used to have some fake ones and some decorations, I think. It might have been somebody else, but I remember them from somewhere. So we just put 3 little glue dots on the back there, and you probably won't even be able to see that. And we're just sticking it right over the top of that jug, or of that pitcher. It's not the jug this time. And now I'll walk you through what we're going to put together here. This one does not have any ribbon, and you just can kind of layer it as you go. So the first layer, we are going to use the Wood Textures Designer Series paper, which I have used several times. It's one of my favorite Designer Series paper packs. It comes in 6x6 of some of the most beautiful wood texture ever. I will tell you that this paper pack has lasted me so long, but I'll give you a little bit of an example of the shades and tones and images that this set has. So it comes in 4 sheets of each kind. So you're really, if you want to use 2 of every single style that's in here, you can do that. So you could use 4 of the same or 2 and 2. So they're reversible and they're all beautiful, and I've used them so much. So this one is cut at 4, just a little over 4 by 5 1/4. And we're just going to leave just a little border of the old olive around the edge there. And now we are using a little bit more of that Country Lane Designer Series paper. And I'm just going to do a little bit on this one. Since this is underneath the embossed layer, we won't have to be quite as generous with our adhesive. We are also, before we put this on, we are going to do a little bit of punching. And I'm going to use, sorry, I have to reach there. I'm going to use my Banner Triple Punch, which this is 1 inch by 1.5 inch by 2 inch. So that's what the 3 notches are for. And this one is not cut perfectly to any of them. So I think it's a 1 1/4. So I'm going to go where it has right there, and then I'm going to flip it and punch just like that, just to give a little bit of a banner. And that is going to go right on there at the bottom. We're going to put that one sideways so that it kind of comes out next to where our sentiment's going to go. And we're going to use this Designer Series paper as our guide there. It's almost going to go to the edge there. Not a big deal. So before we adhere our chicken wire on, I want to show you a little bit of a tip. So we're going to have our chicken wire about right here with our galvanized image there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Snail Adhesive on that top area, pretty good, on that top corner. And then I'm going to put it down before I've even put it down on my card, so that it attaches. Now it'll stick to whatever surface you're using. So the piercing mat works really nice because you can kind of get it back up. So that's how I wanted that to be on there when we put it on our card. But now, since I've already put adhesive down on that top part, I can go right back over the top and give it a good amount of adhesive. And I've also seen people use a sponge with our Tombow Mono Glue. So they just use one of the clear packaging from, this one I think was from a framelit set. So they just put a little bit of glue down on one of these clear packaging things, and then a sponge, and you can sponge the back of your chicken wire to get the adhesive to go all the way across the chicken wire, so that it can adhere to your project all the way. But because I've put a pretty generous amount on the part that's hiding, it's going to stay on there for me. But if you're nervous about it, that's a tip that I've seen used on different projects. So if you are at all concerned about it not, where did my sentiment go? I have lost it. Okay, there it is. I was like, I know that part is coming that I need to put on. Yep, if you're at all nervous about it, that is what I would recommend for sure. So we're just going to use a little bit of snail on our sentiment here. And we're just about done. So I'm just going to put that down in the corner, leaving a little bit of that crushed curry in the background. And now we are going to use my favorite thing again, Stampin Dimensionals. We're going to put that down on this project. And I need to cut a few little smaller pieces. We do have, I call them baby dimensionals. It just kind of came out one day and it stuck. So that would probably fit on these extra pieces up there, but because I have these already out and I'm already using them, I'm just going to cut a few of this size. Whoopsie. I need to take the backing off of that one. That one just all came off with it. Okay, so I'm just going to take a couple of these and put them on our little cattails and make sure that that has all the height that I want it to have for that one. Trying to get it so that you can't see it. There we go. I was like, I knew I cut it right. And we'll do the last one down here. So I'm going to remove the backings of this. And this is like a record for me, guys, of how long this is going. This is like an online class if I were doing it. If there's any of these projects that you are enjoying and you ever are curious what an online class would be, what I would do is I would just create the paper packs of all of the cardstock or the die cut pieces that I've used in any of these cards, and I would get them already in a pack. So it would come with the sizes already cut down of these projects, and so the only thing that you would need to do for these projects is you would need to do the stamping, and then you would cut out the image, of course. But I can do all of the big shot work for you. And all I need in order to make one of those is if you made a $25 order in my online Stampin' Up! Store and told me which one of those projects that you really, really liked that you wanted the kit for, I would just cut that up and send it in your thank you package to you for that order in my online store. So that is our final card, and it has lots of shimmery things, so it's going to reflect with our lighting today. But that is the third card for tonight. So I hope you loved it and enjoyed it. Even though I went super, super long, I'll show you the projects that we worked on all together here. So that one was the other one, and then these two we also made. So I hope you had fun, and I will work on some projects for next Sunday's Sunday night live stamping. I had a great time with all of you guys tonight, and I hope you did too. So I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.